Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online, and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the new home of power mining analysis. Well, here we have it, Tuesday morning, some very interesting price action in terms of both Bitcoin's chart and the Bitcoin miners this morning. We saw Bitcoin creep its way all the way up to 67,700, then quickly retreat back below 65,000, and now back on the move up and to the right. Anthony and I are going to talk about that price action, what we're seeing in the market, and opportunities in the sector, in addition to some updates from Cipher and Digital in today's video. Before we get into that though, please take a second, smash the like button, guys. Big help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comments section below what you thought about these developments out of both Cipher and Digital today, your outlook on the mining sector overall, and price target for the final few months of 2024. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay, guys, so that's right. Tuesday morning, some very interesting trading in this morning's session, Anthony. I was trying to think over recent memory if I've seen anything quite like this, and I really haven't. We had Bitcoin absolutely spike this morning. I was texting you before our podcast, both in amazement, all the way up nearly to $68,000 US, so 67.7 and change. And then almost immediately a reversal, Anthony, plummeting back down below 65,000. And now we're actually making up quite a bit of that ground. So before we get into the miners, pretty interesting or weird trading with Bitcoin, hey?
Yeah, I mean, when I woke this morning, UK, it looked like it was holding the ground a little bit from yesterday. Had a good rise yesterday and heading back towards 66,000 this morning. I went and had a swim at lunchtime, and then when I came back, I looked at the price and it had gone well over 67. I thought we're in for a really good day, and lo and behold, I'm like 10 minutes later, it dropped down to 65,000. So just another one of those volatile Bitcoin days. I mean, we're talking in the low percentages here, 2 or 3%. The mining stocks will change, 10, 15, 20% in a day. So, but it did send the mining stocks all greens initially, but we've seen a few of those pull back now.
Yeah, we certainly have. We're going to talk about that next up. Here in Canada, Bitcoin has now surpassed 90,000. So we're in the $92,000, $93,000 range, getting close to that psychological $100,000 level. So it's going to be really interesting as we're in close proximity to all-time high territory, to 100,000, to the election coming up here. There's a lot of psychological milestones, I guess, for the market in the next few weeks. Now, in terms of the miners, Anthony, I'll bring up our mid-morning market update. As you said, pretty much green across the board this morning. Now we have a mix across the board. We've sorted it from best to worst performer. On top, we've got Digital. So big news from Sam Tabar and team, the purchase of their own data center. We're going to get into that in a second. We actually have Sam on the program tomorrow to get firsthand information about that deal. So Digital leading the pack. That's really no surprise. And then from there, Anthony, a real mixed bag. What stands out to you in today's trading update?
Yeah, we're seeing a steady move now from CleanSpark. They've put out a number of good updates in the past few months. I mean, the share price hit an all-time high at the end of March there, got to, $24, nearly $25, and then it pulled back all the way back down to $8. So we're starting to see that gain a little bit more momentum. They reached every target this year. They're at 30 exahash at the moment. They've been buying sites to fill with the machines they put on order with their Bitmain. And yeah, everything's positive there. They've even increased their end of year target from 32 to 37 exahash. Fully expect them to deliver that. And actually, if we're being honest, we probably expect them to deliver more than 37 by the end of the year, because they always like to keep a little bit behind, just in case. But minimum 37. And I think they've got the sights on trying to finish biggest miner by the end of the year. They're sort of reeling in now on Marathon Digital, who've got just under 37 exahash energized at the moment. And then you've got Riot coming up close behind on just above 28 exahash. And Riot have got a target of 36 by the end of the year, and we expect them, as we've said on many podcasts, to get there. But CleanSpark shares up today. They were up higher early in the day, but now, heading towards $11.50. IREN as well. We know IREN in terms of what they've done this year. Again, reaching targets earlier than expected. So reached the mid-year target and the Q3 target, and surpassed both of those targets there. So 21 exahash for Q3. It should have been 20, and they've already extended their target for the end of the year by an extra exahash to 31 exahash. So their share price is doing well there. TeraWulf, we know, and Cipher are the two miners that are probably talked about at the moment in terms of who's going to announce the next HPC deal. And so good to see their share prices in the green today. And yeah, I mean, we'll talk more about Cipher shortly. And then you've got the likes of Riot and Marathon, even Gryphon in the green today. So had a couple of good days, Gryphon Mining there. They've put out their update today, which was out on social media, and I updated on that today. So a good update there. I think they produced just over 19 Bitcoin. They've increased their hash rate to 920 petahash. So that's a high at the moment. And they use 100% renewable energy to mine there. So ticking all the boxes today, Gryphon Mining, and they've got a nice little increase there. And then look at some like the miners in the red. We've got a few miners in the red there. We've got Hive, we've got Bitfarms, we've got Soluna, Hut, Bitdeer, and SATO as the biggest drop at the moment. They're down 8% today. So with Bitcoin slightly higher than yesterday, SATO are actually in the red today. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag, Bryce.
Yeah, it certainly is. Now, two observations, Anthony. Your comments about CleanSpark. Interestingly enough, one of my family members, my aunt in the States, she was just asking me about Bitcoin mining after seeing our Amsterdam pictures. I had recommended CleanSpark to her last week, Anthony. It's up 30% in the last 5 days. So definitely, to your point, moving in the right direction. Interestingly enough, though, she went and called their financial advisor. The financial advisor wouldn't let her purchase any Bitcoin mining companies through their investment funds. So still some issues with on-ramping, even in the public markets, which was interesting to me as we talk about these stocks quite a bit here day to day, Anthony. The other call out, MicroStrategy down another 1.8% today, dropping below $200. So that psychological level we talked about yesterday, again, seems as though the proxy plays are switching position or at least jockeying for position, Anthony. We traditionally saw MicroStrategy outperform Bitcoin both on the up and down days. And now we're seeing some of the miners come out very strong, like CleanSpark, like IREN, Digital, in comparison to MicroStrategy. Do you think this trend is going to continue, or do you think maybe just some profit taking from MSTR holders?
We know a few of the retail shareholders in MicroStrategy have been taking a bit of profits. I've had quite a few DMs from people saying they've took some off the table. And bear in mind this stock's up significantly in the last 3 months. So anyone who invested it, 3 or 4 months ago, be sitting on 100% profit in MicroStrategy. Um, it's just, I mean, it's at a premium to Bitcoin. So I think the other day when we talked about it, the percentage is like 270% premium to Bitcoin. So that's a significant amount there, especially when you can go out and buy Bitcoin. And we talked about the fact that because they don't produce it, when they want to increase their HODL or their treasury of Bitcoin, they've got to pay the market price. So they'll pay 67,000 today. And if it goes up to 100,000 by the year, they'll be paying 100,000. Whereas the mining companies, they're able to produce it. Some of these mining companies will be able to produce Bitcoin under 30,000. Certainly the likes of CleanSpark, IREN, Riot, Cipher. and maybe even TeraWulf as well, if they can get a slightly better market rate engine they've been getting at Lake Mariner recently. But some of those Texas-based miners really benefiting from the market rates down there. We had Sue on the podcast today, and she was saying that they're achieving 3.2 um, cents per kilowatt hour in terms of market rate. And we know that's across the board because we get these updates every month. And Riot and IREN put their prices on their updates, so we know exactly what they're paying. But IREN at the moment, with the most efficient fleet of all the mining companies, probably producing Bitcoin well under 30,000. So it does beg the question as to why MicroStrategy are happier to pay, 67, 70, 80, 90, 100,000 for Bitcoin when some of these mining companies can produce it much lower. The other thing to say is since the 1st of October, so we're only going back, a couple of weeks, CleanSpark is now leading the miners in terms of gain. So it's up 21% since the start of the month. Riot 18.9, Cipher 13.2, Core Scientific 10%, Galaxy just behind them, and Hive coming in there at 5.8%. In terms of some of the big names who are in the red since the 1st of October, you've got the likes of Bitdeer, TeraWulf, DMG, SATO, Bitfarms. So some big names, haven't turned green just in the last couple of weeks. So this is showing the volatility of mining stocks at the moment, and every piece of news seems to be giving a miner a little bit of momentum. That news that came out last night, we'll talk about a little bit more from Bit Digital, certainly helped their share price today.
Yeah, you bet. We're going to come on to that in a second here, Anthony. Very interesting analysis you're doing there. Now, I wanted to just pause on your comments around MicroStrategy and make this very clear for the audience. So, as we're saying, Anthony, MicroStrategy, if Michael Saylor wants to continue to buy Bitcoin, they're going to be forced to increase their average cost per coin as we see the market continue to show strength. If Bitcoin continues to appreciate, the only option he has is to purchase it spot price, which is going to increase their average cost per coin. The miners have a relatively fixed cost per coin. As you say, some of the most efficient in the neighborhood of $30,000, $31,000. They're going to continue to have that same average cost per coin independent of Bitcoin's movements, Anthony. So that's where we get that leverage play, not to mention the facilities, the infrastructure, and the mining rigs themselves appreciate alongside with Bitcoin. So that's a really key difference here. When we start to see the price of Bitcoin move, it's great for MicroStrategy to be purchasing when Bitcoin price is depressed below what miners can mine for. But the tables really are turning here. Very interesting to see this proxy play change. It's going to also be interesting, Anthony, if and when we get up into the $120,000, $130,000 range to see the proxy play AI, HPC versus Bitcoin mining and that discussion start to come front stage as well. So some interesting dynamics there. The other, I guess, question for you, Anthony, we see Riot green today, Bitfarms in the red. These companies obviously are very intimately related based on the proceedings of this year. As we know, Riot holds just about 20% of Bitfarms. Curious that we're seeing these two companies on the other end of the seesaw today.
Yeah, and if you think about, the interesting dynamics, we know that Bitfarms haven't reached their mid-year target in terms of hash rate. So they had a target of 12 exahash. They're very close to it. They're 11.3. But bear in mind now, we're in October now. They've got less than 3 months to plug in another 9 exahash. So, the challenge is, will they get to that target? I mean, you put your target out there, you better start achieving it because the market looks at that. And we've seen that through some of the other mining companies. So maybe they're getting a little bit of market sentiment, the fact they've not achieved their target yet. I mean, I'd be announcing as soon as they got to 12, get that announcement out there, and then start planning how you're going to get the remaining miners plugged in before the end of the year, because you're down to 10 weeks. By the end of the competition, Bitfarm should have nearly grown 100% in terms of hash rate. And Riot, on the other hand, they haven't had the same level of production updates that Bitfarms do. I mean, bear in mind, Bitfarms, in terms of month production, there's only Hive and a couple of other miners that can really compete at that level. I mean, month in, month out, Bitfarms and Hive sort of dominate the top two spaces. So production-wise, we know they do well. We know they've got good margins there. We had Ben on the podcast there, but I think the market wants to see hash rate. I mean, look at what happened to IREN's hash rate. Sorry, IREN's share price when they announced the hash rate was going to go from 20 to 30 exahash. I mean, it literally started doubling in within a few weeks. The market likes that. They like that, that news coverage there, and you can see them delivering on that. So we want to see Bitfarms start to deliver. Riot have delivered on their hash rate, but we want to see their operational hash rate, i.e., the amount of hash rate they're using month on month. And we know they've got an energy strategy in place there, but we're into the sort of the cooler months now, so we should be able to see more uptime from Riot, and hopefully some of those issues from Rockdale have been rectified or on the way to be rectified, because by the end of the year, we want to see operational hash rate getting close to 36. I mean, it's no use plugging in 36 exahash if you're only operating at 28 or 27. You need to have, all these other mining companies are getting pretty much what they're putting in there, even likes of Marathon. They're very close to operational, 100% operational hash rate. CleanSpark tend to deliver on their hash rate. Bitfarms, um, are within sort of like 90% of their hash rate. IREN, very, very close to getting full hash rate when it's plugged in. So we want to see Riot do the same, but the market likes the look of Riot. Maybe also Riot indicating that they're prepared to go down HPC finally. I mean, for 3 or 4 months, Jason's been very, very, voicing his opinion that, the company will stay as a pure play miner. But when we had him on the podcast last week, he indicated if the right deal came across, he'd be willing to take that deal. And, who's to blame him? No one would blame him. I mean, every mining company wants that deal. They all want the CoreWeave deal. We'll see who's the next company to get that deal.
We certainly will. And interesting to hear Zach Bradford's comments about the CoreWeave deal as well in Amsterdam. Even from CleanSpark's perspective, a one-of-the-kind deal that every company would love to have. Now, Anthony, you talk about the movement we've seen this week in the miners. It's a good reminder, you guys go on the Power Mining Analysis website. We have a search feature now in the Miner Madness competition ranking page. So you can actually just type your name or your handle in there, look up your ranking in the Madness competition, but definitely some big moves. We've seen people coming out of the 200s, 300s into the top 50 overnight. So always worth a look or a quick login there, Anthony. Now, the other visual I wanted to quickly shout out before we get into the news from Bit Digital is our good friend HODL 15 Capital ETF inflows yesterday coming in north of $555 million. So this is the second time we've been over $500 million net inflow in a single day. And this is really a massive, massive, not only step in the right direction in terms of inflows, but I think, again, a psychological milestone to see this amount of money coming in alongside this big of movement in the price of Bitcoin, starting to get that FOMO that I think we're really hoping and optimistic we get here soon, Anthony.
Yeah, that's a big total, that 555 million.
Okay.
And that works out to about 20 days of production. So massive amounts. If you look at the day before, that's probably close to 10 days. So you got 30 days of inflows, 30 days of production inflow in there. We know that 50% of Bitcoin hasn't moved in the last 2 years from any of the sort of like exchanges or wallets. And so, who's actually selling this? I mean, we know some of the miners are selling on a daily basis, but this is extreme amounts of Bitcoin being purchased. But it's great to see. If you look at the green days down there, there's some really big green days. And yes, we had a few red days, but some of the red days are sort of like double digits. So, 18, 40 million, 54, 91. We look at the green days, you've got 555, 250 million, 235 million, 494 million, 365. I think the inflows have it over the outflows. So all very positive. And if you're led to believe what Larry Fink said yesterday, that the Bitcoin value could equate to the housing market, and that would mean effectively having Bitcoin at around $1 million value per coin. So interesting that finally a lot of these people originally against Bitcoin fully converted and literally promoting the coin now.
Very exciting to see these people converting and promoting the coin. And really, as we heard at the conference, Bitcoin is bigger than all of us, Anthony. And I certainly feel like we are on the cusp of something big here in terms of adoption. Now, you mentioned 20 days supply being consumed in a single day worth of ETF inflows. That's assuming you guys, all 450 coins per day that are mined are sold. And we also know a lot of the big miners, at least the public ones, are hodling those coins and not selling. So, Anthony, you can imagine probably a month or plus a month worth of supply being eaten up in a single day's worth of ETF inflow. Now, the other thing that was interesting, you say who's selling. We actually sat with Adam back at the conference in Amsterdam. We have a piece of news out about his company. We'll follow up at the end here. Had a really interesting discussion with him as well around who's selling. And when we have him on the podcast, that's going to be one of the topics we discuss. So stay tuned for that one as well. Now, with that being said, Anthony, Bit Digital coming out with some big news today. Widely anticipated. Sam had said they're looking to vertically integrate in the HPC vertical itself. They've now come out and purchased a data center, company based here in Canada, actually. It already comes with a tier 3 data center plus a number of other key perks for Bit Digital. Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, we had some of the podcasts there. They were very much an asset light, very much following the sort of Marathon Digital strategy. They leased facilities, they leased mining rigs, they leased GPUs. So not having all their capital put into to assets. I mean, they had a very, very strong balance sheet, zero debt, and heading towards 200 million of treasury before this deal took place. So they've purchased they completed this transaction on the 11th of October. They've acquired an Ovum data centers. As you say, it's a tier 3 facility in Montreal for the price of $46 million. And they've used some of their cash holdings. So they had about $60 million in cash at the end of September. And they've also used 1.62 million of newly issued Bit Digital shares, which will probably equate to something like about 5.5 million. So part of that may be 40 million in cash and the remaining in shares there. We know that they've got a very strong treasury in terms of Bitcoin, Ethereum, because that was valued at about 120 million as at the end of the month there. And with the Bitcoin price rising, Ethereum price rising, that treasury has increased a little bit higher since the end of September. Now we know that uh, Bit Digital are looking to increase their HPC exposure. They've got a 50 million annualized revenue contract at the moment, and that's looking to be increased to close to 92 million, dependent on the order of the latest generation GPUs. But when you consider how much revenues they're receiving from that HPC contract at the moment, that their revenues for HPC now are already outperforming Bitcoin mining revenues. So in terms of HPC, we saw them bring in 4.2 million end of September. Their Bitcoin revenues were probably in the region of about 3 million. So significantly more HPC revenues, looking to grow that. They've got two clients, and now they've got this tier three data center that apparently is already 100% leased, and it's got 4 megawatts under contract. So you think about 4 megawatts, to maybe people who've been following the Bitcoin mining space, that might not sound a lot, but in terms of HPC, 4 megawatts, to get that sort of power for Bitcoin miners, it'd be 40 megawatts of power for Bitcoin miners. So that's a significant amount. And I believe they're delivering their current contracts in Iceland for the 50 million, probably with about the same amount of megawatts for that actual contract as well. So, you can get a significant revenues driven from smaller amounts of megawatts. So this is what it's attractive to, those companies that have got significant power available and sites that, you can host or co-locate sort of like HPC around them. And Bit Digital is certainly making good views about that. And an even better, bigger update tomorrow when we get Sam on the podcast. But they've got a pipeline of power. We hear this word pipeline from all the miners now. It seems this last 3 or 4 months they've all started using that, and effectively, like it's not necessarily part of their current power, but it means that they may have access in the future should the right sort of opportunity arrive to utilize that power. So, 288 megawatts in their pipeline, and they're planning to bring an additional 8 megawatts online by the end of Q2 next year, and that's going to require another 50 million of investment there. So, they're not stopping where they are now. They're looking to grow HPC. Sam's already said, we're not really, putting out any more growth targets for Bitcoin mining. We know we can't match the margins. Bitcoin price would have to get to 130 million. So he's basically putting chips towards the HPC now. You can see the benefits of that. However, Bitcoin price, we just talked like literally 5 minutes ago, Bitcoin price gets to anywhere near those targets from Larry Fink, and we'll all be mining, on our phones and our heaters in our houses and everything we can possibly do to get a little bit of that Bitcoin network.
Yeah, we certainly will. 130,000, not 130 million. If we get 130 million, I think we'll be probably giving up retiring, I would say, from the
Yeah, sorry,
podcast space.
130,000. Yeah, 130,000. Yeah,
I'm
that's fine.
fine with either, to be honest, Anthony. Now, another great update we got was Cipher Mining. So they came out with another option agreement, some more sites, some big capacity in Texas. Now, we've talked about this on the channel before, Anthony. Almost a little bit concerning in my mind how much concentration there's becoming in Texas for the Bitcoin mining community, especially if any sort of natural disaster were to happen in that state. As we start to see things like the hurricane, obviously in Florida, the wheels start going in my head. Despite that, though, great economics in the state. A lot of the top miners are really attracted to Texas. Cipher, obviously, being one of them. Can you walk us through this one, Anthony?
Yeah, I think Tyler actually touched on some of this during the podcast. If you remember, he talked about three 500 megawatt sites and a further 200 megawatt site. Well, it seems uncanny now that, literally, 6 weeks later, we're talking about three 500 megawatt sites. So, effectively, they've got an option to purchase these sites, 1.5 gigawatts of expansion in Texas. So we know it's in a state that they're comfortable with. They've got all their mining facilities there at the moment. And these sites can be used for Bitcoin mining or for high performance computing. And they've been purchased or option agreements to acquire the sites from Juvo Energy. So two of the sites located in North Texas, one in the West Texas. And they're adjacent to transmission assets, which are getting the final stage of approval for interconnection. So with this 500 megawatts per site. So the option now is within the next 2 years they can purchase these sites, which also includes 580 acres of land. And we know that when you're developing these sites, megawatts, you need a significant amount of sites. We've been fortunate. We went down to Corsicana and looked at the size of that site there, and there was hundreds of acres of land there to deliver a 1 gigawatt site. So, we know that when they've got these three sites here, a lot of land included. The purchase price is effectively will be determined on how many megawatts get approved for connection. So that's just going through the final stage of approval. Once that comes out, we'll get to know more about it. But again, it looks like Cipher is sort of like thinking, longer term. This is not happening this year. This is over the next few years. But a lot of I's dotted and T's crossed already on this particular venture, as we say, with regards to the power being available close to hand. So another good update from Cipher. Again, we keep talking about Cipher in the same sentence as TeraWulf, as who may be the next miner to announce something big. TeraWulf just extended their lease agreement at the Lake Mariner site, I think to 80 years now, which fulfills any sort of requirements for a long-term HPC deal. And now we've got Cipher, having substantial land and power assets effectively available for them. Again, should they get the similar type of opportunity with maybe one of the hyperscalers, in the same way that Core Scientific achieved with CoreWeave. So, really good update today.
You're totally right, Anthony. And it is very interesting to see the sequence of press releases coming out from these companies. TeraWulf specifically selling their portion of the Nautilus JV, then extending the lease at Lake Mariner. Obviously, the next step, as you say there, Anthony, would be to announce some sort of an HPC client with hopefully a long-term contract, which is why they needed that extension. Now, another interesting piece of news coming from Adam Back's company. So this was the individual who invented Hashcash. We were able to sit down, discuss with Adam all things Bitcoin related, really in Amsterdam. We're going to have him on the podcast here in the next few weeks. But a big announcement, considering that Blockstream, the company he started and is CEO of, is a private company, Anthony.
Absolutely. And, I wasn't really aware of the sheer size. I mean, obviously we heard of Blockstream and Adam Back as like pretty much the OG. And if you look at the people who attended the Amsterdam conference, he was probably the main attraction for that conference there. In terms of his background, he was there at the start. He was there coding. And now he's got a company that's got a significant amount of mining hash rate. I managed to have a brief chat with him. I think the total there is certainly about 7 exahash. This is a non-public miner. They've got facilities in Texas, and they've just been able to raise. So a non-public miner has been able to raise 210 million convertible note financing round there. So, and that's going to be used to expand the mining operations and its Bitcoin treasury. And I believe I met Michael Minkovic as a COO. And I think Michael was with Adam in Amsterdam there, so I got a chance to have a very brief chat with him. He's certainly very obviously as a CEO, so the mining facilities and operations are in his remit, and we had a really good conversation because it's interesting to understand what strategies they're using in terms of power. So they're looking at, obviously they're looking at the market rate in Texas, which is very favorable to miners at the moment. We've talked, with Sue, we've talked already on the podcast today, miners in Texas are probably getting some of the cheapest power in North America at the moment, round about the 3.2 cents a kilowatt hour. So really, really good for mining. If you've got the most efficient machines, that helps you even more because you're not requiring as much power to mine Bitcoin. So a really good position. And so, yeah, so, a significant amount of funding for a non-public. I mean, some of these non-public miners we know out there, like the Core Mints out there, Swan Mining out there, who are currently going through a few issues at the moment. But Core Mint Mining, that they've been growing organically and they've been raising funding through various rounds, but nothing like this type of level. Sometimes some of these small companies, it's like, you're looking at 20 million, 30 million funding round there, and you're getting, some private funding coming in, maybe a couple of companies, supporting it as early backers to it before effectively, they'll have to go public, because the only way to really achieve significant size, you can only stay non-public for so long. If you want to grow like the likes of CleanSpark, IREN, Marathon, Riot, Bitfarms have done in the last couple of years, that's through public financing and the use of like ATMs. Also, as a public company, you probably get more access to using debt at really low rates. I mean, we've seen Marathon, they got their convertible notes at something like 2.5%. Core Scientific, I think it was 3%. So, some really good opportunities once the public miners. We know it costs a considerable amount to go public. It might cost in the region of about $10 million. But if you're talking about a firm here that have just closed on $210 million in convertible note financing. They're certainly in a position where, that should be on their agenda. But hopefully we get, I've reached out to Adam, hopefully get him on the podcast the next few weeks, and he can sort of like give us a sort of like a high level overview of not just the mining part, but also everything else he's working on at the moment, because he really is somebody in the space that when he talks, we all sort of listen. So it'd be a great time on the channel and, educate us all as we look to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, totally agree. I think really a testament to exactly what you said there, Anthony. Not a lot of individual private companies can go out and just get $200 million privately. Not a big deal in the Bitcoin mining space. You really need to have a track record and reputation. I think you and I would struggle to raise $200 million if
$200. Yeah.
yeah, 200. That's exactly right. Hey, you bring up ATMs, Anthony. I know you just put out an article for Compass, a two-parter, so I'll let you give that a quick plug and then we can wrap up.
Absolutely. So yeah, I just thought it would be a good piece to look at that the mining companies themselves, the public miners, have really got sort of like these three levers to utilize to grow. And ATMs or dilution of shares is one of them. And the way that some of the big miners have been able to do that is by the use of an ATM. So, at the market share offerings. So some companies who can't use ATMs, they have to go to the market physically and say, we're going to, dilute a percentage of shares. And what the market will do straight away is they'll reduce effectively the share price by that dilution. So, it means that those shareholders who are in the company already have basically lost a little bit of their value because there's going to be issuing more shares. With an ATM, you're still issuing shares, but nobody knows when you're issuing shares, so the market can't really sort of like price that in too much. And if you're issuing shares to grow, by the time they know, and this is usually about 4 or 5 months after the effect, you probably bought hash rate, you're growing more Bitcoin, the market looks at that favorably. And sort of like the bad news story isn't a bad news story anymore. It's now a positive news story because, you look at the likes of IREN. IREN have grown hash rate in the last 2.5 years. I'll let you know now as an advance of this, 1,700%. 1,700% in the last 2.5 years. So effectively, 2.5 years ago, June the 30th, 2022, their hash rate was just above 1 exahash. They're at 21 today. CleanSpark and Cipher and TeraWulf have also grown hash rate round about, 1,000% in that period of time as well. And they've all done this, using the strategy of ATM. So, three levers: they can sell Bitcoin, they can get debt, or they can sell shares. And there's three options there. But I've looked more at the sort of like the ATMs, looked at sort of like convertible notes, looked at private investment. They call them PIPEs for abbreviation. So this is instead of going to the market with with 100 million shares to dilute, you'll go to, and an example of this will be Bitdeer. So Bitdeer recently sold 100 million shares to Tether. So effectively, it's still a dilution, but they got one buyer for all those shares, and they negotiated a price with them. I think there was another, I think, a significant amount of warrants that I think it was 10 million warrants that went alongside that at $5. So there's another 50 million basically that they took up as well. So I think there's like 150 million in total. So that's an easier opportunity to do that with one customer than going out there trying to sell your 150 million shares to a million customers. And so, you obviously, when you're doing that, you probably give them a little bit of a preferential price, but also the fact that you're going to support that with the due diligence that says, look, you're investing in our company, $150 million or whatever the price is, and we're going to deliver this, 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 and this. And it's down then for you to analyze that. And you see these offerings, you go and look at the offerings online for any of these companies, that can be 200 pages long in terms of not just the fact that they're telling you they're going to issue some more shares, but the fact is that what they're going to do with those shares and also what the company's been doing previously. So it's like a full financial due diligence so that everyone's aware and the market can appreciate that they're doing it for the right reasons and therefore price reflected. And we've already talked in this podcast about some of the miners that have done really well in this space doing that. But the second article will probably come out in the next few days. That's more about specifically to the miners who've used the various types of financing to grow and how they've grown and how many shares has been issued over the past couple of 2.5 years, just to give people an indication. But yeah, looking forward to getting that one published, and then I'll get the third one that'll come out probably towards the end of this week will be the operational update for September with the 14 and 15 miners that we normally include in that one there. So a lot of work on at the moment to get all these finished. But I think we had Gryphon's update last night, which I articulated to already during the podcast. And so that was the last one to come through. Now the article can start getting finalized and get sent through. So busy week for me this week in terms of writing, but all great. Heading towards that 100 articles with Compass now. I think I'm about sort of 14, 15 articles away. So maybe by the end of the year or early 2025, we can reach that 100 target. That'd be great for someone that didn't really pass English at school as one of his exams. Looking
Can't
forward
even
to
let me get that joke in. That was going to be my first cut. Anthony knew it. Someone who failed English. Maybe I'll bake you a cake, Anthony. 100 articles. That's quite the accomplishment. And yeah, no kidding. A lot of writing, a lot of reading. If those documents are 200 pages, that's why we have you, Anthony, here doing the legwork for us. And we can then take that due diligence and make decisions based on that. The other thing you mentioned about ATMs, almost a knee-jerk reaction, similar to taxes. People are like, oh, I don't want ATM dilution. I don't want taxes. To me, it really comes down to what they're being used for. I don't mind paying taxes if they're being used properly. I don't mind an ATM if the funds are being used properly. But I think a lot of people mix that up, and because of past events or times they've maybe been burned by management, have mixed feelings. But as you say, in the mining sector, Anthony, generally, we can see that growth quite quickly in terms of exahash. That being said, we've covered a lot of ground today. You guys, make sure you go to the website, check out the Miner Madness rankings. Again, use the search feature in the top right, find your name, a lot of movement there. Leave a comment in the section below if you have any questions for Sam Tabar. We've got him on the program tomorrow. Let us know how you're feeling about the mining segment. And of course, feel free to subscribe, hit the like button. We'll see you here tomorrow.